Now that we've thoroughly practiced all of the different sounds in English, we're going to go over some strange rules or patterns that we see in words. We're going to start off talking about silent letters. As we know in English, there are a lot of letters in words that we don't pronounce. So it's very common that we don't pronounce every single letter in a word, which can be rather difficult for people of certain languages. We're going to go over some silent letters or words with silent letters. We're going to start off with the silent E. I think this is one of the most common things or patterns that we see in English words, and it's fairly easy. We do have a couple of rules or patterns, things that we see that happen when we have a silent E. Something that we see frequently, especially in four-letter words, when we have a silent E, the vowel in the middle of the word usually changes to a long vowel. So when we have, usually this happens when we have four-letter words. It can happen with other longer words as well, but when we have four-letter words and we have an E at the end, so the E is silent, and it usually changes the vowel in the middle of the word. So for example, if we have the word bit, it's a three-letter word, no E, the I in the word bit is the short sound, so it's making the I sound. When we add an E onto the end of that word, that E changes the vowel to a long vowel. So we go from bit to bite. We go from cut to cute. We go from kit to kite. Not to note. Okay? This doesn't always happen. So of course there are always exceptions. So this doesn't always happen, but it is very common. This silent E can also change, they can make certain harsh sounds become a little bit softer. So for example, this happens a lot with C and G. So C and G usually make a K and a G sound. But when we have the silent E, that changes the way that we pronounce these consonants. So for example, with the words grace, right? So instead, with that C, instead of getting that K sound, we're getting a S sound. Or with the word age, right? We're not getting a G sound, but a J sound. Okay, so these are some patterns that we see with a silent E. There are also many instances where the silent E does not affect the pronunciation of the other letters at all. For example, in the word R, right? It's A-R-E, we're not saying air, but R. So we do, of course, have plenty of exceptions. It wouldn't be English without exceptions to the rules. So we're going to go over some words with silent E's. Let's start with some very basic three-letter words, and then we'll go from there. So three-letter words with a silent E. Again, the best way to practice this is to listen and repeat. Remember to record yourself. I will be pausing after every couple of words so that you can repeat and practice, okay? So let's start with silent E, three-letter words. We have age, R, 8. Pause to practice. Age, R, 8. Buy, Q, do. Pause to practice. Buy, Q, do. Next we have I, use, sue, die. One more time. I, use, sue, die. Of course, we have many more of these three-letter words with a silent E, but those are some of the more common ones. or some unusual words maybe. Let's go to some 4-letter words with a silent E, and we're going to notice that a lot of these words are going to have that long vowel sound, A, I, O, U sound. So let's start. We have bake, came, cube. Pause to practice. Bake, came, cube. This next word, we can pronounce this 2 different ways depending on how we're using it. We have dove, as in the bird, or dove, as in the past tense of dive. Confusing, right? So dove or dove, come, case, bear. One more time. Dove or dove, come, case, bear. Moving on, lose. Make sure we don't say loose, but lose. So we have that Z sound. If we say loose, it's a completely different word. Lose, shoe, type, wise, note. Pause to practice. Lose, shoe, type, wise, note. Excellent. Again, we have lots of 4-letter words with a silent E. So we have more words even, such as give, late, make, mute, nose. Right? We have lots and lots of words with this silent E. Name, lime, hype, hope, right? A lot of these words, these 4-letter words, are some of the most common words that we use pretty much every day or in every single sentence. So these are very common, and just remember that we do have a silent E with these, and in most cases, not all, in most cases, the vowel in the middle of the word is going to be a long vowel. Remember, a long vowel sound is when the vowel says its name. So A, bake, O, dove, I, wise, right? So that's a long vowel sound. Let's go to some 5-letter words with a silent E. Let's look at these. So these are getting a little more complex. They're not as common of words. Some of them are, but we have some wider range of vocabulary here. We have abide, above, adore. Pause to practice. Abide, above, adore. Close or close, right? That S changes depending on how we're using it. If we're using it as a verb, close, right? Close the door. If we're talking about something that is like the distance, we can say it's close. That's close to my house. So the difference is going to be in how we pronounce the S. Close the door. This door is close to my house. So close or close, curve, flute, gauge. Close or close, curve, flute, gauge. Gripe, loose, niece, gripe, loose, niece. Pause, tease, wine. Pause, tease, wine. Stove, slate, hence. Stove, slate, hence. Evoke, blade, great. Evoke, blade, great. Excellent. So we have lots of words like this as well. More common words such as wrote in the past tense. We have some verbs here in the present tense, in the past tense. We have lots of nouns here. Let's go to some longer words with silent E's. We don't have too many of these, but let's look at some of the more common ones here. For example, the word please. Please. Receive. Reserve, preserve. Pause to practice. Please, receive, reserve, preserve. Handle, courage, calculate, conceive, expense. Handle, courage, calculate, conceive, expense. All right. Again, we have many more words than the ones that we just went over with silent E's. If you Google words with silent E's, you will find lists of many words, hundreds of words with silent E's. We also have words in English with other silent letters. So not just silent E, but other silent letters as well. We're going to go over these words with silent letters. Some of these can be very tricky. Some of them are a little bit easier. A lot of these words also come from a French influence. So that's also where some of these silent letter or words with silent letters come from. Let's start with our words with silent A's. These are what we also call squeezed out vowels, and it doesn't just happen with A, it can happen with other vowels or other words with vowels in them, such as family, business. It's where we kind of squeeze out that vowel sound, so we don't really pronounce the vowel. And we're going to see that also in words such as artistically. So instead of saying artistically, we're going to squeeze out that vowel and we're not going to really pronounce it at all. Artistically, logically, musically, romantically. Pause to practice. Artistically, logically, musically, romantically. And remember, we can practice these in sentences too. If it's something difficult or we really want to remember, we really want this to stick with us, we can practice in sentences. For example, she thinks about things logically. He's musically inclined. Right? So we can think of sentences to use these words in to practice them. So usually when we have words that have this A-L-L-Y, usually, not always, usually we're not really going to pronounce that A sound. It's going to just sound like artistically, especially when we have a C-A-L-L-Y. Let's go to our silent B's. So we have a lot of words that end in MB, and the B is going to be silent. We also have some that have this B-T combination, and the B is also going to be silent. So with words like climb, this includes when we use it in the gerund form or in the progressive form, climbing. So we're not going to pronounce that B. Climb, climbing. Comb, comb. Crumbs, crumbs. Debt, debt, doubt, doubt, numb, numb, subtle, subtle, thumb, thumb, tomb, tomb. Some of these words are a little tricky, so I'm going to give you all some sentences. Hopefully so we can figure out what these words mean, how to use them in a sentence, and to practice a little bit more. So, for example, with the word crumbs, right? You can say, the girl ate a sandwich and left behind lots of breadcrumbs. She left behind lots of breadcrumbs, right? Little tiny pieces of bread. They have a lot of debt, a lot of credit card debt, student loan debt. After getting the injection, my hand was numb. Or for the surgery, they had to numb my mouth. I liked that color because it was very subtle. It wasn't very bright and strong, it was very subtle. With this word subtle, we want to avoid changing the vowel sound so that it sounds like settle or saddle. So we can practice those three words together: settle, saddle, and subtle. Subtle. Let's go to some words with silent C's. We have acquire. With acquire, we hear the Q sound more than the C sound. Muscle, scissors. Right? So instead of muscle or skizzers, we want to say muscle and scissors. One more time. Acquire, muscle, scissors. Silent D's. These are good ones. First we have Wednesday. So the first D is silent. Wednesday. Sandwich. Handsome. Edge. Bridge. One more time. Wednesday. Sandwich. Handsome. Edge. Bridge. So with sandwich and handsome, we don't say sandwich and we don't say handsome. That D is kind of ignored. This happens a lot even when we're speaking with words like and. A lot of times when we're speaking fluently or fluidly, we kind of ignore that D when we're speaking quickly because it's really difficult to pause and make that D sound. So a lot of times and turns into an, right? I would like a soup and sandwich, right? Soup and sandwich. I'm not saying a soup and sandwich. So this happens a lot when we're speaking fluidly. We kind of ignore or skip over some sounds. Let's see, let's go to some words with a silent G. Silent G. We have sign, champagne, gnaw, high, light, rain, though, and through. One more time. Sign, champagne, gnaw, high, light, rain, though, through. This word gnaw, it starts with a G. Gnaw is whenever, think of a dog with a bone and they're chewing on it. They're persistently chewing on this object. That's what it means to gnaw, to kind of chew on something. We also have these words though and through. These words with O-U-G-H are some of the most confusing words in English because we have though, through, we have thoughts, we have cough, we have rough. All of these words that end in O-U-G-H, and almost every single one is pronounced differently. So definitely be careful with those words. So again, we have though, through, thoughts. We have cough, and we have rough. We have more as well, but those are some of the more common ones. Let's go to silent H's. We have words like honest, ghost, hour, what, and weather. Weather, not like the weather outside, but like whether or not, for example. One more time, honest, ghost, hour, what, weather. Moving on to our silent I. So again, this is what I was talking about with these squeezed out vowels. Squeezed out vowels, one more time, are when we don't really pronounce a vowel in a word. So we call it a squeezed out vowel because we're just kind of ignoring the vowel sound. We're not really pronouncing that vowel. So with the letter I, we have one common word here, business. Right? We're not saying business, we're saying business. Moving on to silent K. We have a lot of words that start with KN, and these words, the K is always going to be silent. So we have words like need, like to knead dough, knife, night, knock, not, and no. One more time, need, knife, night, knock, not, no. Very nice. Moving on to silent L's. These are excellent words to know with silent L's. We have the most common words here, would, should, could. So these three words, the L is silent. We're not going to say would. It's really hard to say with an L actually. So we're going to pronounce it like with that sound. Would, should, could. We also have calf, half, salmon, although many native speakers say salmon. It's supposed to be salmon, talk, walk, yoke. Yoke, think of the word woke or joke. They all rhyme. Yoke, woke, joke. Let's practice these one more time. Would, should, could, calf, half, salmon, talk, walk, yoke. Excellent. Let's go to some silent N's. The common pattern here is we have words ending in M-N. So this is our common pattern here for this silent N. We're just going to pronounce the M sound. So for example, autumn, column, condemn. Right? And we want to get the stress correct on this word. Condemn. Right? So the stress is on the second part. Condemn. Hymn, solemn. One more time. Autumn, column, condemn, hymn, solemn. Excellent. The next word, this is one of the most confusing, misleading words in English, I believe. Kernel. We pronounce it pretty much the same as a corn kernel, right? A kernel of corn. So a colonel, as in somebody in the military, an official in the military, like lieutenant colonel, and then a kernel of corn, spelled completely different but pronounced the same. Kernel. Next, with silent P's, we have quite a few words here. We have words like corps, as in the Marine Corps, the Peace Corps. Coup, pneumonia, psychology, receipt, right? Not receipt, receipt. One more time. Core, coup, pneumonia, psychology, receipts. Okay, silent S's. Ooh, some good ones here. We have words like aisle, island, debris. One more time. Aisle, island, debris. Very nice. Almost to the end of our list here. Let's go to silent G. We have quite a few here. We have words like asthma, ballet, castle, gourmet. Let's repeat those ones. Asthma, ballet, castle, gourmet. Notice we don't say ballet or gourmet. Ballet, gourmet. Next we have listen, rapport, ricochet, soften. One more time. Listen, rapport, ricochet, soften. Notice that the word rapport is not report, right? Report is a different word. A report card, a report for school, a report for work. This is rapport, right? We need to build rapport with our students, right? So we need to make some type of relationship. We need to build confidence with somebody. We need to build rapport, have a good reputation. Let's go to silent U's. We have words like colleague, right? Colleague, guess, guard, guide, guilt, guitar, tongue. So we can see all of these silent U's are coming after a G. So we have this G-U pattern. So we're just going to ignore the U and pronounce the next vowel. Colleague. Here we're just ending with the G. The last two letters are completely silent here. Colleague. Guess. Pronouncing the E, not the U. Guess. Guard. Guide. Guilt. Guitar. Tongue. So we want to avoid making like a guilt, gwilt, right? Or guitar, guitar. No, so we're going to ignore that U and just focus on the vowel that comes after, if it's at the beginning of the word. Next we have some silent W's, and we're going to end here for today. Our silent W's. Answer, right? Make sure to avoid answer, answer. Sword. 2. Hole. Wrist. Right. Who. Pause to practice. Answer. Sword. 2. Hole. Wrist. Right. Who. That is a list of many words that have silent letters. There are more, of course, but those are some of the more common words, some of the trickier words that have silent letters. Excellent work. Let's move on to our next exercise.